Today we are talking about the truth about God revealed in missing page 25 in the declassified CIA document on the gateway process. So, for those who don't know, the CIA had a document about the gateway process, which we have been exploring, that's all about altered states of consciousness and exploring different domains of reality. But when this document was declassified, it was missing page 25. However, this page has been recovered, and this page contains information about God and religion. So very interesting that this particular page pertaining to God and religion was missing from the document, but as I said, it has been recovered. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. We're going to be seeing what it says about the truth about God, what it says about religion. Does religion all reflect an underlying truth? What is it? What is God? That's what we're taking a look at today as we explore missing page 25 of the CIA declassified document, the gateway process, and what it says about God and religion. Now, before we begin, I just want to say, as always, please like and subscribe. And if you enjoy my work, support over on Patreon. It's the best way to support. You get access to all our members-only videos. We have a members-only video every single week, a new one every single week. And we talk a lot about a lot of interesting stuff there. You can get access to that by joining on Patreon or tier 2 or higher on YouTube. You can hit the join button right below this video. Also, watch out for scams. There's a lot of scams going on in the comments, people pretending to be me, saying join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram, whatever. Don't fall for it. That's a scam. That's not me. And also, be on the lookout. There's a lot of people and groups out there spreading misinformation and disinformation about me, our movement, and what we're doing because they don't want this information to get out here. So don't fall for it. Be smart. All right, here we go. So we're going to start right away. If you haven't seen the other videos on this declassified document, don't worry. You don't have to make sense of what we're talking about today. But we're going to pull this up, and we're actually going to start on, let me bring this up, page 25. So we're starting on page 24. We're starting on page 24 because it's in page 24 that it suddenly cuts out where page 25 was missing. So we're going to start off by seeing what page 24 says, and then we're going to get into page 25. So let's begin, and you can see this is the section on belief system considerations. So remember, the gateway process document is all about altered states of consciousness and the true nature of reality, reality being a projected hologram that we can access by projecting to different levels of this hologram through our consciousness. That's what this entire document is about. And so this particular section, belief system considerations, is basically saying, well, what does this have to do with concepts like God and religion? Is there some sort of relation? Is there some sort of correlation between this idea of reality being an internally projected hologram that is exploring itself through its different transformations and altered consciousness? Is there some sort of relation to God? Is there some sort of relation to religion and what's been saying? So that's what we're exploring right here, and we're going to see what it says, and then where it cuts out, and then what missing page 25 has to say. So, in 1967, Alexandra David Neal and Lama Yangden wrote a book entitled Secret Oral Teachings in Tibetan Buddhist Sects, from which the following quote is taken. Quote, "The tangible world is movement, say the masters, not a collection of moving objects, but movement itself. There are no objects in movement. It is the movement which constitutes the objects which appear to us. They are nothing but movement. This movement is a continued and infinitely rapid succession of flashes of energy, in Tibetan Sal or Shug, all objects perceptible to our senses, all phenomena of whatever kind and whatever aspect they assume are constituted by rapid succession of instantaneous events." Okay, so first of all, the reason why they're talking about this is because they're trying to relate the ontology of existence, or what existence actually is, underneath physical reality to what's been said in the past, in religions, in Tibetan Buddhism, what the masters have said, etc. So let's take a look at this real quick. So what are they saying? they are saying that the masters say that everything that is experienced is movement, that objects aren't in movement, but rather objects are movement itself or arise from movement itself. So is this true? Well, let's just take a little break for a minute and explain this idea. So is it true that reality is just movement? Yes and no. So what is existence? We understand existence to be reason itself, or rather a logical code, or you can understand it in terms of mathematics. You can say that this is a mathematical reality. But diving even deeper into it, this is a rational reality, or a system of reason, and we can understand this mathematically, okay? So what does it mean by saying, so basically what reality is all rational possibilities that are compatible with each other. I don't want to talk too much about this because I could talk for an hour about it, and I have before. I have a video on it called The Answer to the Greatest Philosophical Question of All Time. Check that out if you want to know more about what I'm about to say. But anyway, we understand reality to be a system of reason exploring itself, or you can understand it as a system of mathematical energy exploring its various transformations. So is this movement? You can also understand it like information. So let me explain. Remember, reality is this very interesting setup where it seems like contradictions, but they aren't actually contradictions. They are just opposites that exist together in unity. For example, reality is both one and many. Reality is one because it's one mind and one system, and it has the capacity for multiplicity, it has the capacity for unity, but it's one system that explores itself in its multiplicity. So it's both one and many. One system exploring itself in multiplicity, one and many. So it could seem like a contradiction to say reality is both one and many, but it isn't actually when you think about it. Kind of like 0 is equal to 1 and minus 1. 1 and minus 1 aren't contradictions, they're opposites that exist in a logical unity. So see the important difference between contradictions. True logical contradictions are impossibilities and don't exist. But unities that exist in, or opposites that exist in a logical unity are possible. Like 1 and minus 1 is equal to 0. It's a logical unity that can exist together. So movement exists in a certain way where it gives rise to something tangible. And again, I could talk for an hour about this, but let me just explain this in a real quick way so we can move on to more. We want to move on, but I just want to explain this because this is a really cool thing to understand. Ultimately, like I say, reality is reason, reality is mathematics, meaning you can think of reality as being information. So motion is possible. There's nothing that prevents motion. There's no logical contradiction that arises from motion. So what happens with motion? Well, motion is when you have basically, and remember, I'm explaining this really simply. So anyone out there who's like, oh, well, you skipped a few steps or you forgot. I know, I don't have an hour to explain this, but think about it this way. Reality is information. So what happens when information is in motion? Well, you have information that is at one location. And when I say location, I don't mean a physical location. I mean a logical location. Think of like X and Y, XYZ coordinates, like in a computer code. You can have XYZ coordinates without being a physical location. You can have a logical location through coordinates, kind of like that. So if you think of information in motion, when you have information in motion, well, what does motion entail? It entails leaving a certain area and arriving at another area. That's what constitutes motion, leaving one area and arriving at another area. Well, immediately when you have something leave one area and arrive at another area, you're going to get extension. You're getting extension introduced into the system because of the system's capacity for motion, leaving one area and arriving at another area, you're going to get extension. So this is basically how motion will give rise to the idea of extension. So is everything motion? Now it really gets down to the point of what do you define as motion? There are extended objects. Extended objects exist. Extended objects exist logically because of the possibility of motion. So anyway, We could split hairs all day and talk about it, and it would be really fun to do that. But I know probably a lot of you don't want to hear me talk about motion all day. We're getting to missing page 25. But just the point being is this idea, the different masters have said of reality being motion rather than a collection of objects is very close to the truth. It's very, very, very close to the truth. And you could say it is true depending on how you define it. At that point, we get into a semantic debate. But you can see it's at least very close to truth. So continuing here, it says, the classic description of the universal hologram is to be found in a Hindu sutra. See, now this is really cool again. So do you see how this section of the CIA declassified document on the gateway process is showing how everything that has been discussed, such as reality being an internal mental hologram, different levels of consciousness that one can tune to, the parts of this has been discussed in religion. And so they're talking here that the classic description of the universal hologram is to be found in the Hindu Sutra, which says, and quote, in the heaven of Indra, Indra's net. In the heaven of Indra, there is said to be a network of pearls so arranged that if you look at one, you see all the others reflected in it. So there's this thing called Indra's net, and it says in the heaven of Indra, there's a network of pearls so arranged that if you look at one, you see all the others reflected in it. So what does this have to do with a hologram? Well, this reflects the holographic principle. So let's say that you have a holographic sheet. So for those who don't know, if you have a transmission hologram, you have a holographic sheet, film, paper, holographic photo film. And when you shine a laser through it, and you look through it, then you're able to see the hologram. Okay, well, let's say that you have you have a holographic sheet, let's say, and it's a hologram of a car. You look at it and you see a 3D car. If you were to take that hologram and cut it in half, the entire hologram would still be preserved. So you'd have two pieces, right? Well, if this were just a normal photograph, well, you'd have the front half of the car here and the back half of the car here. That's not the case with the hologram. If you look through this half, you'll still see the whole car. And if you look through this half, you'll still see the whole car. So what this means is that every part contains the whole. So the holographic principle, in understanding, well, one of the holographic principles, one of the features of a hologram is that every part contains the whole. So, and this has to do with us as well. And you can kind of have the idea of as above, so below. Not exactly same as above, so below, but you can at least get the idea that we as eternal minds contain the information of the universe within us, and so do all of us, because we're all complete sets of mathematics. So kind of like, basically, since we're all mathematical entities, we all contain every number. So I contain every number as different types of frequencies. You contain every number as different types of frequencies, etc. Each one of us contains all. We're all complete. But anyway, you can see this hologram property of every piece containing the whole being reflected in this Hindu sutra, which talks about a network of pearls that if you look at one, you see the reflection of all the others. This is what they're getting at. They're making comparisons here to religion, to what we have come to understand about reality. So we're getting to the end of page 24 here. Then we're going to get to the missing page 25. And let's go a little faster. I know I want to say so many more things. I could talk to you about Greek philosophers that also had this idea in their ontologies, but let's not do that. Let's move on. I have cited this quotation because it shows that the concept of the universe, which at least some physicists are now coming to accept, is identical in its essential aspects with the one known to the learned elite in selected civilizations and cultures of high attainment in the ancient world. In other words, those who were privy to very high teachings in the ancient world understood the information that physicists are beginning to understand now, but not in the same way, of course, in a different way. But still, reflecting the same general principle or idea. So the concept of the cosmic egg, for example, is well known to scholars familiar with the ancient writings of the Eastern religions. Also, you can find the cosmic egg in the West as well, in the Orphics, the Greek Orphics. Nor are the theories presented in this paper at variance with the essential tenets of the Judeo-Christian stream of thought. Real quick, what is the cosmic egg? The cosmic egg is thought of to be basically the birthplace of all reality, that all of reality springs forth from the cosmic egg. Well, what's the cosmic egg? The singularity, the Big Bang singularity. All reality contained in potentiality in a single point, and then springs forth into actuality. So just like an egg contains the potentiality to become a chicken, the potentiality, the information of the chicken is contained within the egg. So the entire of the universe, and you, me, and everything, is contained as potentiality within the cosmic egg of the singularity. So you seeing how the different references to these mystical traditions and ancient traditions are lining up with different things we know about reality: cosmic egg, Indra's net, energy and motion. The concept of visible reality, that is the created world, as being an emanation of an omnipotent and omniscient deity who is completely unknowable in his primary state of being. Now, I'm going to have some contention about this, but let me just read it first, and then we'll get into this. So, the absolute at rest in infinity is a concept straight out of the Hebrew mystical philosophy. Okay, so what are they talking about here? They're talking about Kabbalah. So the absolute at rest in infinity is what we call the source. And the source is the realm of pure frequency, and you can think of it as the realm of pure light. In Gnosticism, this would be known as the pleroma. For those, who have meditative experiences or psychedelic experiences, remember, don't do anything dangerous or illegal. You can or near-death experiences, don't do anything dangerous or illegal. You can have, people have experienced the pure white light, which I have experienced as well. I have experienced the pure white light of the source. So the absolute at rest in infinity is a concept straight out of the Hebrew mystical philosophy. So you see this in the pleroma. In Hebrew mystical philosophy, they're talking about Kabbalah, specifically Ein Sof. So Ein Sof is known as basically Ein Sof is the endless nothingness. The infinite nothingness, the nothingness that is infinite, the nothingness that is endless, which is this light that produces everything. From that you get Keter, and then all the different Sephirot on the tree of life, all the way down until you get the kingdom, Malkut, which is physical reality. So you can also think of Ein Sof as being the cosmic egg as well. So you have the cosmic egg, which is Ein Sof, which is the singularity, which is the source. So they're basically, again, making connections to all these different philosophies and teachings that line up with what we're coming to know and understand about reality. So even the Christian concept of the Trinity shines through the description of the absolute as presented in this paper. The description of energy, totality at rest in infinity, fits the Christian metaphysical concept of the Father, while the infinite self-consciousness resident in the energy providing the motive force of will to bring a portion of that energy into motion to create reality corresponds with the Son. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it. This is so damn important. We need to talk about this. Okay, I need to see how much time we have to get through today's topic, but we need to talk about this stuff. And you know what? We're going to talk about it. Okay, so first of all, real quick, what I want to say, first of all, when it comes to this fits in with Christianity, it fits in with a mystical interpretation of Christianity. It doesn't fit in with the Christianity that you're going to find when you go to church on Sunday. They believe that God is a man with a beard in the sky who created the world in 7 days. And they believe Jesus is his son who came to earth and turned water into wine, made people rise from the dead, died on a cross, and came back to life in 3 days. And they believe the Holy Spirit is the helper that enters your body when you accept Jesus into your heart. That has nothing to do with reality. So that's completely divorced from reality. So this is really important. When it says that all religions reflect an underlying truth, wrong. It depends on the interpretation of that religion. If you're taking a literalist interpretation of that religion, no. Literalist Christianity has nothing to do with reality. It's the furthest away from reality you can possibly get. It's absolutely crazy. But yes, if you take a mystical interpretation of Christianity, or like Gnosticism, which talks about the divine mind emanating the pleroma, which emanates the material world, and thus being divine sparks going through self-knowledge to return to the pleroma, etc. This contains elements of truth to it in a symbolic and metaphorical way. So I want to point that out and make it really, really clear, because religion has done untold damage to this world, and we don't want to let it off the hook and be like, oh, well, religion's just great and it's known the truth all along. No, religion has been used as a form of manipulation and control and war and violence for many years, thousands and thousands of years. So mainstream religion is terrible and has stopped humanity from attaining knowledge and enlightenment. But if you have a mystical interpretation, like Kabbalah is a mystical interpretation, Gnosticism is a mystical interpretation, there are elements of truth to it if you understand it in a symbolic way. Because again, even if you understand it in a literal way, it's still not truth. You know, Gnosticism talks about Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, and the archons who created the world to trap human. No, there's not actually archons out there trapping you here. Archons represent aspects of the mind, aspects of your unconscious that you need to overcome to attain true knowledge of the self. So it's all metaphorical. So if you're understanding these things as metaphorical, you know, like the cosmic egg is not a literal egg. If you understand these things as metaphorical and symbolic, okay, that's another story. So take Hegel's interpretation of Christianity. Hegel considered himself a Christian, but a completely different type of Christian than you would find on the street. You know, or at church on Sunday. So Hegel looked at God the Father as being the idea, in other words, kind of like the metaphysical framework of existence. And then the Son was the metaphysical framework of existence embodying itself in earth through the form of a human being. In other words, you can think of God as being like a code, and then the Son is like a video game character in that code, allowing the code to explore itself, okay? So you can think of God like the code in terms of Hegelianism, and then the in-game avatar would be the Son, which is what allows the code to experience its own dream world by inserting itself within the dream world. That's why you call Jesus Christ God in man, and man in, you know, the Son of Man, the Son of God, because it's Christ is both God and man, and so are all of us. We're both God and humans, and that we are expressions that are exploring itself through ourselves. We generated this reality, and now we're exploring this reality through these physical avatars. So we are all Christs in that way. Now, what is the Holy Spirit in terms of Hegelianism? And the Holy Spirit in terms of Hegelianism is collective consciousness. So collective consciousness in terms of Hegelianism would be the Holy Spirit. So true spirit, true, you know, we could think of that as attaining a higher consciousness where we understand what we call the absolute perspective, when we understand that we're all connected and we're all in this together. It's a collective consciousness. So do you see, that is worlds different from, you know, having to pray to God to forgive you because you masturbated or something. Like they're worlds apart. So it's important to keep that in mind. Mainstream religion is terrible and has done untold damage and does not contain truth. If we understand it metaphorically and symbolically, or as Hegel called it, Vorstellung, which means picture thinking, understanding it through pictures and stories, okay. But Hegel also said that we will evolve beyond the need for pictures and stories to understand reality through reason. And that's absolutely true. We can understand it through reason and have no more need for these stories, but we can still use these stories to have a rich and interesting life, but they're not necessary. We can enjoy them without the damage that they cause when they're taken literally. Okay, let's move on, because there's so much I want to explore here. And so what I had just said in this document, it says, okay, right? The description of energy, totally at rest in infinity, fits with the Christian metaphysical concept of the Father. Okay, so that's basically, think of it like the code of reality corresponds to the Father. The infinite self-consciousness resident in that energy, providing the motive force of will to bring a portion of that energy into motion to create reality, corresponds with the sun. So in this document, they're talking about the sun being representative of the portion of energy that generates physical reality. So being born from itself, this physical reality, manifesting it within itself. And it says, this is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it. And that's exactly what I just said about the code generating its own video game world and inserting itself as a video game character to explore its dream world. That's what it's saying when the absolute must project a dream world or a hologram of itself and then perceive it. So it's creating this perception of itself in order to perceive itself. Let me see real quick if I can show you a great example of this. Let me see. I have a great picture that I would love to show you, but I don't know if I can bring it up. Let me see if I can. No. Damn. Yes. Okay. Actually, hold on just one second. And I want to show you this picture and why it's so important and why it's worth seeing. And this will make it a little easier to understand. So if you can see this picture, let me blow it up for you. It's not very high quality, but if you can see, there is an eye and you can't really see, but all of this is like galaxies and stars and planets. So you can see that it is, this eye is perceiving itself as other, but it's not actually other, it's itself. It just doesn't realize that it is itself. So this cosmic eye has generated a world that it then perceives as something other than itself, but it's not actually other than itself, it's self-generated. This world that we exist in right now is generated by us and we are perceiving it. We are the eye. This is us right here. As you know, just, hey, go look at the stars and you're doing exactly what's happening in this picture. Look at the hand in front of you, look at other people. This is why I say that we need a new mirror test for understanding absolute consciousness or all awareness or hyper awareness, because how do you test for self-awareness? Well, you do the mirror test, where a baby, you put a spot on their forehead and they look at themselves in the mirror and they realize that, oh, that's my reflection. That's actually me. It's not another baby. That's me in the mirror. So they reach up and try and take the spot off their head. All awareness is when you recognize that all reality is your mirror. Everything around you and other people are expressions of ourselves in diversity and multiplicity. And with that, what comes with that? Increased empathy. Just like the baby realizes, oh, that's me, so reaches up to wipe the spot off its head. When you realize that you and all of us are in this together and are expressions of each other, the analog of wiping the spot off our head is increased empathy, because you're not going to go hurt other people because you're going to realize that would be hurting you. This is the true meaning of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Like that's the golden rule. And the reason why that's the golden rule is because that was that, you could call it Christ consciousness. Remember, this is a different, not the standard interpretation, but the mystical interpretation, the real interpretation, understood the way it should be, is understanding that we're all reflections of one another. And anyway, this is what we need to do and realize. So, anyway, the absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive itself. And you see that's exactly what's happening here. And that's what we're doing right now. Remember, don't think of it as this thing other than us. It's you. When it says the absolute must project itself and then perceive itself, think, oh, I must project myself and then perceive myself. Or we must project ourselves and then perceive. You're doing this right now. Like me talking to you, you're perceiving yourself right now. I am you and you are me from the absolute perspective. There are different modes of thought. Remember, reality is both one and many. So we really are truly individuals, but we form one system that is experiencing itself as well. We're all individual eternal minds. We are all individual selves, but also as individual selves, we are nodes of one system that is experiencing itself through its capacity for multiplicity. So let's move on. But so remember, I have videos about all the stuff I talk about here, and I try and get them in little 5-minute bites, things that should be an hour each. So check out my other videos if you want to hear more about all this kind of stuff. So anyway, the absolute projects a hologram of itself and then perceives itself. Or you could say God projects a hologram of itself and then perceives itself. Or we project a hologram of ourselves and then perceive ourselves. Because it's all, we are God. We are all reality, exploring ourselves through ourselves. That's why it's so ironic when people pray to a God in the sky, because they're praying to a projection of themselves. And it's not even a real projection. It's just a mental projection of an idea that, and a concept that they have created in their head that needs to be internalized. It's a psychological concept of projection where you're looking out there for what's in here. So it's all in here. And when we realize that, we can create a better world. All right. So this is because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute, so I read that, must project itself and then perceive itself. That hologram is a mirror image of the absolute in infinity, still exists outside time and space, but is one step removed from the absolute and is the actual agent of all creation, all reality. So there's different levels of the hologram as well, of course. There's the source and then a generated frequency domain, and then from the frequency domain comes a space-time projection. So there's different levels. But I want to get to more of that. So that hologram is a mirror image of the absolute, and the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from this self-consciousness, serves the, and then it ends, and that is where page 25 was missing. So it was just getting into this description of religion and belief systems and God and the absolute and how it relates to reality, and then it cuts off mid-sentence. Page 25 is here, but it was missing, and then it picked up on page 26 in a completely different section, having nothing to do with what was previous to it, just a completely different thing in general. So what was on page 25? We have page 25 now. So let's read page 25 and see how much time we have to get through it. So, and the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from this self-consciousness, serves the absolute as the model around the evolution of time-space revolves to ultimately attain a reflection of and union with Him, meaning God. But remember, that is us. And what does it mean to have a union with God? Well, it would be a union with us. And what is a union with us? Well, a true union with us is we are exploring ourselves. So we began as a unity with the capacity for multiplicity. We just existed in identity. But we existed in the beginning in a perfect unity. And this is why in the beginning there was nothing. There was no time or space because everything was in perfect unity. Now, there wasn't non-existence. Everything was just so perfect, there wasn't anything to perceive because it's only difference that allows for a experience of something spatial or temporal. You can have, if you don't have difference, you still have experience, but the only experience that you have is pure white light. That's it. So you always have experience, but when there is no difference, it's just pure white light, pure unity. It's only when you introduce difference that you have another kind of experience, because everything requires difference for an experience. I am here, you are there. That's difference. That is red, that is blue. That's difference. That is short, that is long. That is tall, that is small. That is hot, that is cold. All that entails difference. So in the beginning, there was nothing but us in that pure state of unity, pure white light. And then we went into a mode of diversity, which means we all became uniquely identifiable. In other words, we entered into a state of diversity within all of us. We differentiated. We always existed and never didn't exist. We always existed as a multiplicity, but we were in a state of unity, and that state of unity, you could say, gets fractured into a multiplicity as we explore ourselves through our diversity. That's the Big Bang, because you introduce diversity on the mental level, that gets reflected in the physical level, as above, so below. You have that reflection go on. So when introduction, that's why you have seemingly everything coming from nothing at the Big Bang. It's not really everything coming from nothing. It's difference being introduced into a system that was in perfect unity. So in other words, What's this idea of returning to unity in him? Well, it's not a him or her or she or they or anything. It's us. It's what we are. It's just us. It's all of us as a collective. And this returning to unity is returning to that state of perfection, like you could say a Rubik's Cube that solves itself. But we're eliminating, as time goes by, as we synchronize, we become more and more unified as we understand, learn, and grow together. And then eventually we enter into that state of unity again. And then there's another big bang. And it's a cyclical cycle. We go from unity to diversity to unity to diversity, unity or multiplicity. Unity, multiplicity, unity, multiplicity, unity, multiplicity. It's these cycles. The days and nights of Brahma, inhalations, exhalations. You have the cycles from Empedocles. The cycles of love and hate, or unity and separation, as Empedocles called. This idea of a cyclical reality is also found in Stoicism, of the world being born in fire and consumed in fire, born in fire, consumed in fire. It's all over the place, this idea of a cyclical reality. Again, you can see its relation to old, ancient knowledge. So that thought model, which perfectly reflects the essence of spirit of the absolute, fits the Christian metaphysical description of the Holy Spirit. Now, once again, this is only, it doesn't fit the Christian metaphysical concept of the Holy Spirit. It only will fit that if you take a mystical or philosophical or, if you interpret it in a very specific way. You go, again, to the church on the corner of the street, they're going to think all this stuff is blasphemy. So I really want to get that. I mean, hey, I grew up in a strict Christian household. I have religious trauma syndrome. I don't like this idea of, oh, well, all religions reflect the same truth. No, they don't. They fucking don't. It depends on how you interpret them. If you interpret them in a certain way, then you could say that a lot of religions symbolically reflect the same truth. So, a lot of religions interpreted in a certain way symbolically and metaphorically reflect a similar truth. Religion, as they are taken literally and by the mainstream, do not. That's why you have religions that go to war with each other. So we just need to be very, very careful about how we talk about things and how we express things, because we don't want to make it seem like religion is benign. It's not. But see, this is why we need a new interpretation of religions. We need religions that are reinterpreted in a healthy way. So that's how we solve the problem of religion. You can't just eliminate religion. Like, that's not possible. What you have to do is reinterpret it in a way that is rational and healthy, and shows that we can interpret religions as all reflecting the same truth. So that means changing it so that whether you're talking about Brahma or God or Allah or the great invisible spirit, that these are just different symbols or metaphors for the same underlying truth. So we need a reinterpretation of religions. But it's important to remember, yes, the mainstream religions are very, very damaging, and we don't want to let them off the hook. That's why I don't like this idea of, like, you see that bumper sticker that says coexist with all the different religious symbols. That would be nice, but that's only possible with a new interpretation of religions. Right now, that's not possible. We would like to make that possible. It would be great to make that possible, where we're just understanding the same truth, but through different stories, where we know their stories and we know their metaphors. So that whole coexist thing is not possible right now, but we would like for it to be possible. I mean, half the wars and half the atrocities and half the bullshit going on in the world right now is because of religion. All the rights that we're losing, all the crazy stuff that's going on in America. This is not peaceful coexistence. This are those who are have become possessed by these negative religions and have become brainwashed and controlled by these negative religions are stripping people's rights away. And so we just want to be lucid and clear-headed and understand that religion is damaging, and we need new interpretations and versions to be able to have a healthy world. So anyway, finally, our description of the universal hologram, the torus of creation and evolution, is neither new nor original. Its use as the figure of the universe, and so they're talking about the torus. We did a video on that previously. I'm trying to see if I have an image of a torus somewhere. It's a toroidal. Look up a torus. Look up a toroidal shape. Anyway, they're talking about the proposed shape of the universe, which is a geometrical shape known as a torus. Torus. Its use as the figure of the universe of creation, developing, and evolution is found in various stylized representations in virtually every religious system of antiquity, whether of Eastern or Western derivation, whether it's the stylized labyrinth once popular in the Hellenic world, the spiralized version of the Hebrew tree of life, or its Hindu counterpart, or the Chinese spiral through the fourfold powers. The ultimate meaning is the same. Mystics the world over, it seems, have perceived the universal hologram in the same spiral form and have incorporated that intuitive knowledge in their religious writings from antiquity to the present. So I think it's really interesting that this page 25 was missing, when basically the information on what information on page 25 is this idea of unifying religion under a singular idea. And a singular underlying idea is what we need to unify religion. And when I say unifying religion, I mean religions being understanding that the elements of their religion are metaphorical and symbolic for one underlying truth that we all share, that underlying truth being that together we are the absolute, we are God, experiencing it ourselves through our own creation or projection, and that we're all different expressions of that, and that we're all in this together. And sure, we can explore that metaphorically and symbolically through all different kinds of stories and myths and metaphors, as long as we know there are stories, myths, and metaphors, and know that we are the true generative force and ground of all reality that is exploring itself through itself. That is what God is. We are God. We are the absolute, exploring ourselves and coming to self-consciousness through us. How do you become God? You realize that you are God. When you realize that you are God, you become God, because being God is just a state of mind. We are all God in potential already. We are all the creative ground and generative force of this existence. It just takes that new level of consciousness to realize it. Just like the baby realizing that that's itself in the mirror, not another baby. It's us, an individual coming to the realization, oh, this is all our projection, my projection, that we have projected and we're exploring together. And that's when we move to a new phase of reality. And that's what we talk about, creating a new beginning and a new earth and a new consciousness and a planetary civilization that's based on those ideas. And then we move from a survival phase to a thriving phase. We don't have to survive anymore. We can thrive, and we will thrive when we realize we're all in this together, and we start creating a world based on that. Because instead of hating each other for our differences, we celebrate our diversity. See the difference between an individualistic survival mindset to a unified, thriving mindset, where we very much are individuals, but we exist within a collective world where we're all one people helping each other grow, learn, and understand together and celebrating our diversity. And guess what? Fucking enjoying life. Like, wouldn't that be nice? That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn and experience life and experience. What is the meaning of life? To learn and to enjoy. To grow and have meaningful experiences. So it's about time that we get past this survival, bloodshed, war, violence, and hatred, and move to a time when we're having beautiful experiences together, growing, and guess what? Enjoying life. Crazy idea, right? That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn, grow, understand, and enjoy the ride. So we read basically one paragraph of page 25, but there is more, but we are way over time. So next week we are going to read the rest of missing page 25 and see what the rest of it has to say and what it reveals. If you enjoyed this, hey, I have a whole playlist on the on this series on the CIA document, so check it out. There are so many more videos on my channel that touch on everything I talked about and more. And if you enjoy my work, hey, support over on Patreon. You get access to members-only videos, all our members-only videos, and there's a new one every single week. So there's a ton of those. And you can also help out by hitting the join button below on YouTube. Tier 2 is what gets you access to all the members-only videos. And I also want to remind you, hey, don't feel pressured to support monetarily. I never want anyone to feel pressured to do so. You don't have to, okay? Again, never want anyone to feel pressured or anything. That being said, I do want to give a big shout out to those who do support, especially Renaissance Fairy Cassidy, Angela, Fairies of Venus, DB, William Hood, Enki, and Nosalina Autis, and everyone else. Thank you very much.